Welcome to the ResearchWorks podcast, broadcasting live from the Oceania Academy of Cerebral Palsy and Other Childhood Onset Disabilities Conference 2026 in the beautiful city of Hobart, Australia. Join Dr. Dana Poole and the ResearchWorks team as we bring you an exclusive series of interviews with visionary keynote speakers and leading presenters, captured right here amid the groundbreaking discussions and innovations shaping the future of disability research and care.
Hello everyone, we're back here at conference. Hope you have been enjoying all of the episodes so far and thinking about how you're going to implement it into your practice, and maybe there's been more questions, maybe you're inspired to do a PhD. I don't know, it could happen on any front. Marissa, inspired to do a PhD yet?
Look, something is brewing. I feel like I actually need to get like a massive piece of white paper and write all the things I'm thinking from the people we've spoken to and the things we've heard and how we need to, implement things into our practice, B, what we can aim for, long-term goals. It's all very exciting.
Your mind is boggling, but it's a good thing when you put it on a big piece of paper.
I'm a visual learner. I need my...
Yeah, I love that. Well, we're going to add another thing onto that bit of paper and maybe we'll use that as our summary as well.
Great.
Our summary episode.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yep.
So we're going to dive in a little bit more now. You've heard a lot about involving consumers, and that was kind of a bit of a foreign topic about 15 years ago, but now it is entrenched into everything we do. And to talk us through her project, we have Fiona Russo here. Welcome onto the pod.
Thank you very much.
It is so lovely to have you here. We met in person last year and just got chatting about the work that you do, and it's just so wonderful to see your work being presented here. Looking forward to asking lots of questions about it and getting into the more of the why you do what you do as well, Fiona. The presentation title is 4 Layers Deep, Co-Design a Community-Led Online Navigation Program for Families of Young Children with Cerebral Palsy. Lots of words. Good words. I love it. What was the inspiration behind this work? Why did you get into it in the first place?
So this is an extension of my PhD work. So I came to research in a slightly odd way. I have an MBA in public health management, so I was working on the business side of health delivery.
Yes.
And then I had my youngest daughter. So she is the youngest of 4. She's about to turn 15 at the end of this month.
Oh,
so,
wow.
But when she was 4, she was diagnosed with Rett syndrome, which is RETT for anyone listening.
Yes.
It's not a particularly common one, so look it up. I encourage people to learn more about it.
Yeah.
But it's a disorder that is genetic, in her case spontaneous, so not inherited from either of us, which was very important for us to know because she has 3 older siblings and 2 of them are sisters who will be having children of their own or planning children of their own.
Sure, yeah.
But Rett syndrome has stages that start with normal development, typical development. So she was born full term, everything was happening as it should, and somewhere near her first birthday, she stopped doing the things she'd learned to do. So she stopped making eye contact, she stopped smiling, she stopped with the animal noises and the yes and no, nods and shakes and all the things that she'd learned up to that point.
Yeah.
She really stopped engaging in life. There wasn't, no smiling and no crying. So it was she was very absent.
Yeah.
And we went through all of the investigations that come with that acute phase where we were looking for really frightening things like brain tumours and injury and all of those kind of things because it was so sudden. And it turns out that's quite a typical onset for Rett. So there's that period of typical development followed by rapid regression of skills that can happen anywhere from sort of 9 months old to 3 years old. And then now she's in the phase 3, which is what they call the plateau phase. So she's essentially static in her skills, although we're working really hard to build her capacity.
Yeah.
And then phase 4 is, they call it a degenerative phase, but I think the new research suggests that it's not neurodegenerative.
Okay.
That perhaps this is more about how people with disabilities face inequities in health service delivery. So that sort of brought me around to research. So that was a long story for a short pathway.
But thank you for sharing it.
Thank you. It's nice to have a platform to do it. But it really made me wonder, where do these inequities come from? How do we get ahead of them before she reaches that age and before so many other children reach that age? And how do the natural first responders, so the health system, how does that prepare families and parents or caregivers like me to navigate the systems that respond to this need and to advocate for her in those systems. So I started my research journey looking at the barriers to accessing support services as an MBA student, so a research pathway MBA.
Yep.
And what I found were there were significant barriers. It was no surprise to anyone because I was hitting them myself. But after that, decided to move into, if one of the mitigating factors for those barriers was your ability to navigate the system and to advocate well for your child, who teaches the families to do this?
Sure.
And what are the barriers to families building capacity in this place? And some of the systemic things were things like the big systems that serve our children, NDIS, education, health, they don't share core definitions like child and disability.
Wow.
So starting from just that space, I naively thought children are children until they're 18 in Australia, in every system, right?
Yeah.
But that's not actually how it works in practice. So these eligibility criteria right at the gate that are really hard to understand and really difficult to access. And we've got lots of don't ask, don't get systems in Australia too. And if you don't know what to ask for or how to ask for it, your children don't get. So there are a lot of barriers right at the very beginning.
And there's probably so much information on the internet, and obviously some is helpful and some is maybe not helpful.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's so incredible about your work is obviously you're looking at designing this online system that provides really credible resources for families at this really critical time when they're calling out for support. We know the importance of that parent and caregiver support in these early years. Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? And what a story. And I love how it was your lived experience, wasn't it, that brought you to asking more questions.
Yes. Yeah.
So much so that you embarked on a PhD.
Yes.
Amazing. And, quite a change of direction from where you were originally as well. But I can imagine all that does is just add to your life experience and how you ask questions with that lens, because you've got that extra skill that a lot of researchers probably don't have and have never had to do before. Yeah. So I think it's really wonderful to come at it from that lens that is so applicable to so many families and what they're experiencing, and just phenomenal. So the objective then, so what was your main goal of this particular presentation?
So the main goal of that was to develop something that builds that capacity in family caregivers right at the beginning of their child's journey. So we know that early intervention is critically important. We know that in cerebral palsy in particular, 90% of motor function happens, the development of motor function happens in those first 6 years. So, and parents are acutely aware of this too. We feel, and I say the collective we, based on all the parents I've spoken to, we feel this need to do more and be more and access more. But what does more mean?
Yeah.
What is good stuff to access? What does evidence-based intervention mean
that's right.
in practice?
Yes.
And how do we as parents ask the therapists that we work with to deliver the interventions we think are most suitable for our children? Or how do we challenge when we think perhaps that's not happening?
Yeah.
So these questions that are really tough to answer, and when you're in the thick of the early days post-diagnosis and you're dealing with all the extra things, that adjustment to parenting and then to parenting a child with a difference and then the family functioning impact and siblings and all of those extra things, it's a lot to take on at once.
Yeah.
So the aim of this program is really to empower families to do a bit of that and to learn more about themselves and their children and how to do that stuff.
Sure. And the name of this program is CP-CASP.
The name, yes. It's not a very good working title for families. So our working title right now is The Village.
The Village.
So the actual program will be called The Village. But yes, CP-CASP, which stands for Cerebral Palsy Knowledge, Advocacy and Skills Program.
Okay.
But we wanted a more user-friendly
Yes,
version
fair
of
enough.
that.
Fair enough.
It's a great
All right.
name.
So from a project perspective, that's what you might, if people have heard of it before, because you do see it circulating around, which is really wonderful, and that refers to The Village. It's wonderful. Okay. How did you go about doing this?
So we are, I should probably say we're halfway through this project. So we are building the platform right now.
Wonderful.
So what I was presenting on here at the conference is really our co-design process. So the processes we went through to talk about what the content should be and how it should be delivered to families. So we started with recruiting. So when we're talking about 4 layers deep, those 4 layers really started at the funding level. So this was funded by an MRFF consumer-led grant round.
Wow.
And so that's layer 1, the funding layer. The next layer would be the research team. So in our research team of CIs and AIs and broader research partners, there are at least 5 people with lived experience of disability, whether they have CP themselves or their parental caregivers.
Okay.
So we've got enormous lived experience in that team. And then beyond that, we recruited a consumer advisory group. So in our consumer advisory group, they are all young people or adults with CP or their parental caregivers.
Right.
So our consumer advisory group is 9 people. We have a mix of genders. We have people from 16 to 60 years old.
Brilliant.
And again, some with CP themselves and some are caregivers. So they provide governance to the research project, and we recruited them right at the beginning. So even while we were going through the funding application process. And we meet with them monthly. They look at things like our ethics and the standard sort of research governance. We have a standing item for that group to present to our CI meetings. We have a liaison person who is outside the research team and has a lived experience as a parent herself, who works with that CAG to bring their ideas to the CI meetings so that they don't. It's hard to be the only sort of dedicated consumer in a room full of researchers. So our liaison person really brings that in a less intimidating kind of way without asking our CAG members to go. And then on top of that, we've now recruited 20 co-designers, and those 20 people are 10 parental caregivers of children who are older than the program. So the program will look at parents of kids 0 to 6.
Right.
The people in our co-design team have older children. So they're reflecting on what would have been useful to them, just like I am, when their children were in that age and stage. And the other 10 are allied health professionals. So their lived experience of providing services to children like mine. Now acknowledging that Charlie has Rett, which is not CP, but we are broadly including CP-like conditions. And also critically, children who are we say high risk or high chance or high probability, whatever the language is, children who've been identified as having a chance of CP.
Wow. Those really are 4 layers deep.
It is 4 layers. And I'll add a 5th layer now that we are crowdsourcing content. Because one of the things our community co-designers told us very clearly is they want to hear and see real stories from real families.
So powerful, isn't it?
Incredibly. And they want to see hopeful stories and resilient stories, but they also want to see realism. So we have gone out via social media and connections to see if anyone was interested in sharing their story, and we have been overwhelmed
I bet you
with the
have.
response
People want
from
to
these
help,
families.
don't they? They want to be part of.
Absolutely.
That fits that name, The Village, perfectly.
It does.
It's about walking alongside, isn't it? And in one of the podcasts we did yesterday, I know one of the themes that came up from young parents or from parents of young children at high risk of CP was, wanting to have people to be direct and to be honest with diagnosis and where they were headed, but also to give them that hope. Because so then they can still enjoy that time with their child. And and the hope for what they're going to, be and grow into as they get older.
That definitely came through in our workshops. So one of the early messages from all of the groups. So one of the really nice things about having the parents and the allied health professionals in that co-design group together is the way they bounce off each other. I should say there's a number of people who wear multiple hats in that group. So there are some allied health professionals with children with disability and some parents who have been allied health professionals in the past.
Wow, what insight.
So we've got a lot of sort of cross-dimensional stuff. But they bounce off each other really well in exactly what you were just talking about, this idea that you do have to deliver difficult messages. And as families, we have to take those messages in. And families were saying we need to remember that our child is the same child the day before that conversation that they are the day after. That nothing material has changed here, and we have to make time to just be their mum and dad and to smell their heads and to play with them on the carpet and to do all these things. But as a parent, my reflection is that can be really difficult to do, because I started to look at every play opportunity with my daughter as a chance for therapy. I've got all of these photos of her sort of aged 4 and 5 at the park with not a very happy look on her face, to be perfectly honest, because I'm trying to incorporate therapy into her play. And there were lots of very gentle reminders from the parents of older children to say, there's a time for that, and there's a time to just be their safe place and for them to be yours. So that was a really lovely message to hear, and to have that reinforced by the allied health professionals, I think important for the parents too.
Yeah.
So it's an amazing group.
What a wonderful process and group to be able to get those insights from. And, one of my questions was going to be like, how generalizable are some of these results? And of course, this is specific to the group that you had, but it's wide ranging enough that I can imagine under different, in different states of Australia, under a very similar system, there'd be very similar sentiments to that as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of what you found, the co-design process I read in your abstract had critical insights into service, navigation, pain points, including NDIS access, early intervention pathways, and emotional support needs. Talk us through some of that, because I think those are big topics, aren't they? I mean, I know I just rattled them off there, but they're big, life-changing. Your mind's on them a lot throughout that time.
Yeah. And I think one of the things, again, that came out of that process, so the actual process of co-design, we started with those two groups, the allied health workers and the parental caregivers. We did some focus groups and interviews with them separately first.
Sure.
Because we wanted to really see if they had discrete views.
Yeah, sure.
To see where they were aligned and where they might be different. And they were largely more aligned than they were different, which I think won't surprise you. And it was really good to see. But after that, when we started on our really deep dive workshops, we were all together as a group. So that was the power of that conversation.
Beautiful.
And we got to really flesh out some of the themes that came out of the focus groups and interviews. And when we're talking about things like acknowledging overwhelm and offering emotional support and encouraging help-seeking behaviour for families who are saying, I don't feel like I'm coping as well as I'd like to be, or I don't know how to share this information with my extended family because I can't say it without crying, or I don't want my child to hear me upset. These are the kinds of things people were saying.
Yeah.
And they were really clear about where that should sit in this program. So they were saying to us, if you're going to deliver that kind of information, that has to be first, because you have to meet parents where they are, and they're likely to be coming to you if they've enrolled in this program. Their diagnostic journey is in train. So it's not always linear, it's not always fast.
Right.
They may have been diagnosed, they might not yet, but the fact that they're here suggests that they are in that what next phase, which is overwhelming.
Yeah.
Even if you feel really resilient and really capable, it's such a life-changing event to have happen in your family. So really starting from that place of emotional support. And we've had some great support. One of our CIs is Koa Whittingham, who I'm sure you know.
Yes, I do.
So she's been helping us put together some of the material based on some of her PACT project work and some other things around how parents connect with their children, how they might seek psychological supports for themselves and their partners, how to support their marriage and their family, those kinds of things. And then we went on from there to what happens between that and explicitly teaching or building the capacity of people to advocate and to navigate systems. And there was something in between that families and allied health workers were saying, I don't think you can go from that to, okay, here's what you have to do now. It's got to be a bit more. So one of the things our group came up with is they really wanted to have a section about understanding the needs of your child.
Yes.
So this was starting from really basic things like a glossary of terms. So
important.
The health system loves a good acronym.
We love it.
Some great jargon.
Yeah, we do.
GMFCS levels. You think of all these things we use and we don't even think. Yeah,
that's right. And things sometimes that parents will read in a report that no one's ever said or explained to them. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
So that second sort of space of now we've talked about your needs and where you are, let's now talk about what journey you're going on and what this means and what this medico language might look like and what functional language looks like, because the NDIS doesn't do medico language, it does functional language, and they look very different.
Yes.
And some of those reports can be very confronting. And again, we read things in reports that maybe haven't been explained to us. So moving through that, understanding you, understanding your child, and then into what might happen along this journey.
Right.
So we started this with the idea that we might look at, a first 100 days kind of resource or that kind of stuff. And we were told very, very clearly that that was not the way to do it, that these journeys aren't linear and they don't happen in 100 days.
Okay.
And what they thought would be far more useful is to just talk about what they call big life transitions.
Okay.
So these things that you might anticipate or you might not, but that could happen in the first 6 years.
Yes.
So we can roughly put them in order of when we think these things might happen.
Yes.
But they were really clear that they wanted us to present a list of things that were transitional things that then could be coupled with some tips and tricks and experiences from other families.
Yes.
So things like going home from the hospital, introducing a new family member if another sibling's on the way, talking to extended family, moving house, going back to work, going to kindy, all of these big life transitions that probably are going to happen in those first 6 years, some of which came as a complete surprise to families who've talked to us. So the ones whose children are older going, I didn't know that was going to happen. Now I realise, of course it was. And it's a common thing among the community I'm part of.
I see.
So why don't we tell other families to anticipate this?
How lovely is it to learn from each other? Like it really is that, and there's a generosity there, isn't there? And the compassion there and not wanting families to feel isolated. And the hope is that during a very difficult time anyway, that hopefully more things are in place to give them certainty and information at a time when they're ready and need it.
Yeah.
That really is the key. And I love how you said that as well, like the first 100 days, I would say if someone first presented to me, I'll be like, oh, what a great idea.
Yeah.
But it's when you go deeper and you go, actually, I get why they'd say that, because then there's the pressure of thinking in these first 100 days, I need to be at this point.
Yes.
It's the anticipation beyond that, isn't it?
And it's the last thing you want to do is add that extra pressure through something that wants to support families. But what a great example of what we might think is a good idea. You delve in a little bit deeper. Okay.
Yeah.
We can
that is not the way.
Yeah, that's right.
I just think when people are feeling, I just know in families might have spoken to when they're feeling overwhelmed or they're in the process of new diagnosis, potentially the first 100 days, it's almost an overwhelm when it comes to the internet in terms of,
huge.
what to go. And so it ends up being often social media that is the leading drive. And obviously social media, you get a mix of different resources. And then there's often indecisiveness that comes. And so then it leads to no action. And you see these parents, they clearly would, want that emotional support. They might need that psychological support, but it's almost that overwhelm of choice as to where to go. So that's what I loved when I read about this is that it's giving a credible one-stop shop
with the governance structure in place. It's really beautiful. So
one of our families called that being paralysed by indecision.
That's what it is.
That's such a lovely
and
term.
this is what this supports to avoid and to help them to make a decision to get the support is huge. With such intention in building it, that's the beauty behind it.
So what would be your main take-home messages here for clinicians or the community? What would that be from the work that you found from here so far? I know it's just one piece of the overall
one piece
work.
of the puzzle. And once we've developed the program, we'll be enrolling families in a pilot project, a pilot delivery. So the actual delivery will be 2 weeks of go at your own pace online content followed by a group conversation. So part of the outcome here, I guess, is looking to reduce that social isolation so that we've got a peer-led delivery. We've got peer discussions happening in a similar way to those social media things because we do learn so much from each other.
We do.
But it's not always accurate information and it's often biased information or it's not evidence-based. So these things. But we will take pre and post measures to make sure that this is doing what we hoped it would do.
Amazing.
So going back to my PhD project, one of the outcomes was that I was able to define really clearly the role of a parent caregiver over time, so how that sort of evolves. And what I found was that there are 4 discrete roles inside it, and they always developed in the order that there was no exception. And that first role was the typical parent, so the things you expect when you're having a baby and you know you're going to be asked to do. The second one was the specialised caregiver, and that is essentially the same roles of parenting but at higher intensity or for longer periods of time. And then the third one of the advocate, so advocating for your child in a single interaction, so therapist, teacher, specialist, whatever it is.
Yes.
And then finally the activist or the agent of change, which I guess is where I sit now. But parents told me, yep, that looks like exactly how it works. And where I think the village will sit is in that space between that specialised caregiver advocate stuff because parents told me in my PhD program that is where they ran out of spoons or they felt their capacity or their knowledge limited their ability to move into that next space.
Yeah.
So it was increased learning and experience that got them there. And that's where I hope this program will really provide something that's worth having.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this whole journey with us. It's always so generous to be able to share these stories, and it just means that people can connect with it. You know, there's so many people that are trying to find that community, and to know that that's being built really intentionally for them, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to be safe, it's going to be evidence-based, you're testing it, but it's being co-designed as well, and there's a governance structure around it. It's truly wonderful. So congratulations on all of this work, Fiona.
Thank you very much. It has been challenging in the shifting sands of the disability landscape in Australia.
I bet it has,
so
yeah.
I'm sure that's the last theme you're hearing a lot.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, oh, what now? Oh, we're doing this? Okay,
right.
all right.
I confidently write something and then the rules change.
Yes, yes. It's the whole space at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you don't have agility, this is the time to exercise it,
Absolutely.
practice it, because it's the way forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much to all of our listeners. Hope you really enjoyed that as well. Keep an eye out for that CP CASP, the village, and there may be ways to just keep involved and follow the work that's being done here. So thank you again, and we'll talk to you all again really soon. Bye.
Bye.